Hey everybody, this is Tom, otherwise known as Scary Spikes, and welcome to another Star Citizen video. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the Anvil Carrack, the one-of-a-kind exploration ship. Before we get started though, I just wanted to give a very special and sincere thank you to Zanzixuan. He's one of our moderators here on Twitch and on Discord as well, but he's also been an incredibly generous and wonderful member of our community, helping new players and answering questions and doing his moderation duties faithfully. He's also been a very good friend and a very worthwhile member of our community. So Zanzi, thank you so very much for all that you do for us and also for being a gold VIP contributor. This video was also Zanzi's idea, so thank you to Zanzi for the idea to do a video about the Carrack. If you find the video helpful, please make sure to leave a like to let me know, subscribe if you're new, and ring the bell so that you never miss a video in the future. You can also join us live on stream Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on Twitch at 8 PM Eastern. Links to both our Discord and our Twitch are in the description below, and without further ado, let's get into this video. This is the Carrack in the IAE 2950 Best in Show skin. This is a limited edition skin for those who had the Carrack during the time of the Interstellar Aerospace Expo in 2950 or 2020 for you Earthlings out there. This is a beautiful rendition of the Carrack in a wonderful gray and white paint, as well as gold tinted glass and a gold pinstripe along both the port and the starboard side of the ship. Looking at the front of the ship, we can see that there is the large canopy as well as the two-floor bridge, as well as the main entrance to the ship, which is the giant ramp. We'll go over that in just a little bit. But first, let's take a tour around the externals of the ship and show you a few things worth noting. Around the port side of the ship, one of the first things that we notice is that we have this really nice and accessible docking collar. Unfortunately, this is not something that's able to be used at the moment, but with the advent of 313 and ship-to-ship and ship-to-station docking coming very soon, I'm sure that it won't be too long before we start using this regularly. It's also good to know that this is an actually proper working airlock, with two doors holding in the pressurization while you move from ship to station. One of the defining characteristics of the Carrack are the three cargo modules found on the bottom of the ship. Now, eventually, at some point in the future, other modules will be released for the Carrack, allowing it to adapt more to a specific job. In this case, these three cargo modules are capable of cumulatively carrying approximately 456 SCU worth of cargo, and it may be possible to have other kinds of pods that might open in order to carry vehicles or other types of equipment on board. This is one of the things that makes the Carrack a very self-reliant ship. As you'll notice when we get inside and take a tour of the interior of the ship, there's a lot of things in this ship that make it very self-reliant, which means it can stay out for long periods of time without being reliant on stations or other support craft to do what it does daily. On the portside wing, so to speak, we can see that there is our first of 4 turrets with 2 size 4 weapons. But in the stock configuration, they come with M6A cannons as well as the CF447 laser repeaters. We'll go more over that in just a little bit. As we can see on the bottom of the wing here, we have an integrated landing gear. This is again on the port side, and just to give you an example of how long or how large this landing gear is, this is my character standing beside the landing gear. Pretty crazy stuff. Moving further over towards the back of the ship, we can see that these wonderful gold pinstripes on this IAE 2950 exclusive skin continue right towards the very back of the ship. We have some lights, as well as vents and other kinds of spaceshipy stuff on the back, as well as the 4 massive engines that give us all the thrust that we need, as well as I'm sure there are the reinforced fuel tanks just inside the hull, which carry the majority or all of the fuel that we'll need to get just about anywhere. It's safe to note that the fuel tanks hold more fuel than most other ships in the game, and being an exploration ship, that is not a surprise. This is the starboard landing gear here, and of course on the wing as well we have another set of guns. These are again size 4 weapons that can be manned by one of your crew members. Moving further over, we see that the modules seen earlier extend right across the belly of the ship, seen on the starboard side here, and that we do not have the same docking collar on the starboard side as seen on the port side of the ship. And moving forward, we're back at this really nice loading ramp, which is the main entrance to the ship. The button for which can be found right here. Just a quick note that clicking this button twice will open the ramp, and as soon as it opens, it'll close again on its own. I'm not sure if this was an oversight in development, but it's actually really useful because you can just jump on top of the ramp, and then you don't have to worry about closing the ship using the internal button here, as it will just close on its own as long as you've hit the button outside twice. This is the first notable area of the ship that I want to go over. This is a comfortable place to store the majority of your vehicles. I've been able to fit at least 2 regular Cyclones as well as an Ursa rover and a PTV in here, although you can fit a number of different combinations of different vehicles, including 2 Ursa rovers and potentially a couple of PTVs. Over here we have a button that opens up this little slit from the floor, and this is actually a really useful addition to the ship. Not only does it prevent vehicles from rolling back or going out of control and hitting anybody that might be standing in the doorway while there are vehicles being loaded on the ship, but it can also be used as a defensive position to thwart any kind of onboarding or boarding attempts by pirates or anybody else that might not be welcome. Before we go down the main door here, I just want to show you a little corridor off to the left here, which is very well designed. This elevator goes, or this ladder rather, goes all the way up to the habitation deck, and it's really neat to have just in case there's any issues with the elevator. Entering the main area here, sort of the vestibule of the ship, just past the garage, you can see that we have a number of different doors. This first door includes access to an elevator that takes you all the way up to every single deck of the ship, with the exception of the technical deck, which is the very top of the ship. Over to the right hand side, we can see that we have a docking collar access point, which includes storage for spacesuits, which I'm sure will be something we can use in the future. 5 in total, and of course that really nice airlock and docking collar that we spoke about earlier, which has independent doors that allow for pressurization and depressurization for properly entering and exiting the ship. Moving on, we can go into the cargo bay. Now at the moment, it's safe to say that these are not removable or they cannot be opened, but this is something that we'll be able to change in the future as new components and modules become available for the Carrack. At the moment, we can see that we have access here to an elevator, which can take us down into the actual cargo bay, and there's quite a lot of space down here to access all of the different cargo that you might have. Again, in the future, these might be able to be opened, in which case you can actually come down here after parking a vehicle and use the elevator to go back up into the other areas of the ship. Nevertheless, I think this is a really nice thing to have built into all 3 cargo pods, and I think it definitely lends itself to a little bit of foreshadowing of what's to come for this Carrack, which I'm really excited about. Moving on to the main central area of the ship here, right beside the center elevator, there's a few things to note. And first and foremost, there are these gun racks. So there's these armories that are built into the wall, which are available on both sides. The ship is quite symmetrical, which is something that I really enjoy. In addition to that, you also have a lot of space for spacesuits. And moving towards the back, we have our first access to our first turret, which is the aft turret, which faces backwards towards the aft section of the ship and points out the bottom end of the ship. One thing that I wanted to point out, if you haven't already seen my video about trading with the Anvil Carrack, is that the elevator can be a little buggy. Namely that this wall over here is not really a wall, and you can easily fall out of the ship if you're not too careful and walk past it. I really think that they should include some kind of a little ledge here or railing that comes up when the elevator is in this position, with the exception of when you have the door on this side opening. But that being said, we have a few decks to choose from, so the next deck we'll go up to is the Habitation deck. This is the deck that you'll be spending most of your time on with your crew, and a lot of the different things that you'll be doing on the ship can be done on this deck as well, including flying the ship and managing the ship's systems. First, we see that there is a medical bay. This is really useful for being self-reliant, as you can treat injuries and even respawn here if the worst were to happen. You can do so by going up to the main medical bed terminal, holding F, and left-clicking to set your default ICU. At this point, if the worst were to happen, you'll respawn on this bed. This bed can also be used to treat injuries, and we also have additional areas here with some storage space, as well as a doctor's office and pharmacy over on the right hand side. We have 2 additional beds in the infirmary here so that people with injuries can lie down, as well as something that looks like potential components or maybe even some storage space, but these can't be opened at this time. I really like this somewhat of an airlock looking thing here because it's really interesting. It seems to be a bit of a delousing room where you can actually get rid of any contaminants before going into and coming back out of the medical bay. This really makes sense, and it really gives the place a lived in and realistic feel to what it's made to do. Unfortunately, this door is not available. I'm not sure if it's being used for something that will be introduced in the future, but at the moment it's not available to be used. And this is the elevator that we've seen when we first walked into the ship. Over here we can see that we have a sort of a meeting room, as well as it could be also maybe a dining room somewhere where you can have a bite to eat, relax, maybe have a drink, read a book, and just hang out and plan out your next adventures in the verse. Definitely lots of seats for everybody. One of my favorite areas of the ship is right here in the rec room. Now, unfortunately, you cannot yet play pool, but I cannot wait for this thing to be a thing. And hopefully it becomes a thing, because this is one of the coolest pool tables I think I've ever seen, ever. It's definitely a bit unconventional, but it's got that nice Anvil aerospace mat on it with some really cool looking pool balls, so that should be really interesting. Moving further in, we can see that we have some storage lockers here inside of the crew quarters, and we have a nice bench here, as well as sleeping space for up to 5 people, which is really quite nice, given that RSI reports that the ship is good for about 4 to 6 crew members. We also have a shower room here for the crew, which have individually accessible shower rooms with some privacy doors. I think this is really a good touch, and I just really like the way that everything is designed. We've got some nice towels, as well as other kind of shampoos and conditioners and other kinds of bathroom stuff here. Looks like that could be a dryer for your hands. We've got a first aid kit, as well as a mirror that pretty much proves I'm a vampire. Moving back out, we'll go through this washroom and the crew quarters, and we'll continue over to the captain's quarters, which I gotta admit is really, really fun and a cool place to be. This is the toilets, by the way, for the crew, and much as we've seen in the shower room, we do have individually accessible stalls here, as well as a little bit of storage and some shelving units to put different kinds of toiletries on. As we head towards the front of the ship, there's one more room that we need to see, and that would be the captain's quarters. The captain's quarters is a really interesting place. We've got a fire hydrant here, as well as a really nice window, and some computer systems, as well as a bookshelf, and some space for some personal items over here, including a chessboard, which I really wish worked, kind of like on the MSR. If you haven't seen that video, by the way, go ahead and check it out now. This is the captain's chair and the captain's desk. You sit down here and have it move you forward and get to work on whatever you need to do as a captain. I really do like the backlighting here as well. The LED lighting behind this area here in the back. It really just gives the room a nice ambiance, and I really do like the way it looks. The captain does get his own or her own sleeping quarters here, as well as some storage and what looks like a suit storage or clothing storage areas, as well as a storage locker, which the crew also get in the crew quarters. This again is the washroom for the captain, which has an individual shower and stall, as well as a sink, first aid kit, and all the other amenities seen before. Finally, let's make our way to the bridge and have a look at what the bridge has to offer. The very first thing we'll see on the port side of the bridge is that we have a small elevator. This ship has 2 levels in its bridge, and we'll take a look at the other one once we're ready to move up to the next level. There are some component housings over here that house different components of the ship, and in this case we have just an empty spot, but I'm sure there will be something that will be put into here. As it says, it's designed for the radar, and considering that radars are kind of non-existent at the moment, then there's really nothing in there right now. We have some computer stations available here as well on the sides of the bridge. And finally, towards the front of the bridge, we have a captain's seat as well as 2 co-pilot seats. The co-pilot seats have 2 MFDs. So we have 2 down here, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in total. So 6 MFDs for the pilot, which includes the annunciator panel, which shows you all sorts of different things, different conditions of your ship, as well as 3 regular MFDs at the top and 2 smaller MFDs on the bottom that you can use for managing different systems of the ship. Taking the elevator up to the 2nd level of the bridge, we can see that there's a number of really cool things up here, including 2 engineer stations. These stations can be used for scanning or other ship functions, and also the starboard station here can be used to control the very top turret on the ship, as it is a remote turret. There is an engineering station in the middle which is currently not usable, but once it is usable, it will assist anyone in the plotting of routes and the scanning down and charting of different courses and places within space. Finally, there's the command console up at the front, which would allow anyone to fly the ship from the 2nd deck of the bridge. Moving backwards now towards the aft of the ship from the 2nd level bridge, we can see that we have a number of escape pods here for a total of 6. These are not functional at the moment, but they really do look the part, and they are very well placed considering that they are very close to the bridge, making escape really easy for the crew should the worst happen. This room is a repair room, so it's not currently functional, but it is designed to assist the crew in repairing different things like weapons and armor, as well as ship components, to become really self-reliant and self-sustainable when on long treks throughout space. Hopefully this becomes available soon, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be a really fun gameplay loop. Moving towards this curious area of the ship, this is probably one of the coolest areas of the ship, and one of the things that I really cannot wait for to become active and playable in the Carrack. So there are 2 drone pods here. These are 2 unmanned explorer drones, and it's only rumor right now as to what other types of drones might be available, whether we might have salvage or combat drones as well. But given that it's an exploration ship, it's safe to assume that these will be unmanned drones. They'll be pilotable by one of the 2 drone pilot seats on either side of the room, and it looks like we've got some kind of mechanism in the bottom of the room here in the floor to allow the drones to be released into space as well as recaptured back into their individual pods. It's safe to say that at the moment these appear to be bugged, and sitting in these seats will not allow you to get up. At least that's been my own personal experience. Let me know in the comments below if you've experienced the same thing. Here we can see the very familiar sight of the elevator that we had a look at before. And then here is the hangar. If you don't know, the ship does come with a hangar where you can put a shuttlecraft. It's not a lot of space, but the C8X Pisces Expedition will very comfortably fit inside and will allow you to move about different planetary bodies without actually having to take the Carrack into atmosphere, which can be a bit of a pain, although with the amount of thrusters that it has, it's not too hard. Moving along the side, we can see that we have some windows here that we can use to peer into the hangar, as well as a set of doors on the aft corner of the room that would allow us to access the hangar whenever we like. It's a pretty big space, and you can fit a good amount of ships in here, but I prefer having the C8X Pisces as it's really the one that was designed to fit in here. Moving further back into the ship, we can see a few things. First of all, in the middle, we have the main sort of viewing port here for the 2 large engines inside of the main engineering bay. More on that just a little bit later. First of all, let's just explore the 2 turrets on either side of the ship. This might give you some Star Wars vibes, and it's definitely really cool walking through these hallways, but this is the port and starboard side turrets available in the ship. And it looks really cool. It's got a very sort of old school feeling to it, and it definitely gives me some StarCraft or some Star Wars vibes. The starboard side turret can be found down this hallway on the opposite end of the ship from where the port side turret is. These turrets are both size 4, and they have 2 size 4 weapons with a mix of M6A cannons as well as the CF447 Rhino laser repeaters. In my opinion, I would go with the CF447s all around, but again, more on that just a little bit later. Finally, towards the aft of the ship, we can see a very atmospheric engineering bay. This is just really cool with these engines and the smoke as well as the lighting in here. It definitely feels really cool. It definitely feels like this room has quite a lot of purpose. There's a few things that we can explore here. We can go down the main area here by the engines, and there is a ladder that can take us down in the event of an emergency where this elevator over here doesn't work. But since the elevator is working, we'll go ahead and take that down to the base level, or the subdeck as it would be, of the engineering bay. Down here is where we can find the majority of the ship components. Unfortunately, these are a little bit difficult to open up, but as you can see here, we do have our ship components once these doors open up, and this is available on both the port side as well as the starboard side of the ship. We also have the aforementioned ladder just in case things get crazy. On deck 4 of the Anvil Carrack, you have a few but some interesting features. First and foremost, we have this Gravitron, which we stole from a fair over on Bezdek on Ariel. It's not quite functioning at the moment, but it's still really cool. If we turn around and walk over to the doors on the side of the ship, we'll have a few nice windows to look outside, some escape pods, some suit storage lockers, as well as an airlock. It's safe to say that this is basically exactly the same on the other side of the ship, so no need to look down that way. But the front window here allows us a nice view of the external of the ship, including the hangar from which the shuttlecraft can take off and land. Going through the airlock, though, allows you to walk outside and EVA if you happen to be in space. If you're not in space, it gives you a really nice view of the ship, as well as the turret on the top, which can be accessed in the starboard side engineer station on the second level of the bridge, as well as a closer look at all the intricacies that the ship has to offer, including the big radar dish on the back of the ship, seen here. This is one area that I feel a lot of people don't go over, but it's literally the quintessential reason that the Carrack is what it is. This is going to be responsible for the scanning, charting, and plotting of routes, nebulas in different parts of space in the future. Obviously, it doesn't have any features at the moment, but it's something that will be a critical part of the ship going forward. I'm really surprised that more people don't have a look at the top of the ship so closely, because it's basically why the Carrack exists. Having a look from this angle, we can also see the port side as well as the starboard side wings, and of course another closer look here at this turret with these incredibly huge size 4 CF447 laser repeaters. Well, that's a tour of the inside of the Carrack. Let's now move over to Urkel.games so I can show you my recommendations for fitting this ship out for long-term self-reliant exploration. Before we get into the details and my upgrade recommendations for the ship, let's first look at the default loadout. Now, we're looking at the Carrack Expedition here, which just happens to be the model that I have, but the only difference between that and the OG Carrack is this snazzy paint job. Let's have a look first at the default loadout, and that will be followed by my recommendations for how to upgrade this ship. The first thing we'll look at on the default loadout here are the weapons, as with any of the previous ship guides that I've done. Now here we can see that we have a number of size 4 turrets, each with 2 size 4 guns, 2 of them having 2 size 4 CF447 Rhinos, and 2 of them sporting the M6As. That gives us a total of 4,714 DPS with 2,854 alpha damage. Unfortunately, there are no pilot-controlled weapons nor any missiles on this ship, as it is an exploration vessel and not a warship. Moving on, we'll see that we have largely size 3 components, and in fact this is what you would call a large ship, with everything on the ship being a large size, that is size 3, with the exception of the computers, which are size 2 or otherwise referred to as medium. Now, the shields are the size 3 barbicans. These are the industrial grade B. followed by the size 3 power plant, the Reliance, which again is an industrial grade B power plant, and followed by the coolers, of which there are 2, again size 3. Then those are the Ice Flush, which are the industrial grade B, followed by the Agni, which is a size 3 industrial grade B quantum drive. Unfortunately, we're not able to update anything else here unless you're talking about the paints, which we'll get to a little bit later on. So that's the default loadout. You can pause the video now to read additional statistics on the ship found here. And now we'll go over to my recommendations on how to outfit this ship based on my playstyle. This could be different from yours, so let me know in the comments below if you would fit it differently. And of course, links to both of these builds will be down in the description below. Okay, so let's move on to my upgrade recommendations for the ship. Now, unfortunately, as I said, there are no missiles or any pilot-controlled weapons on the ship, so we're only going to be upgrading the weapons that are available in the turrets, which can be manned by your crew. Now, the CF447s are just fine, so we'll keep those, but we'll go ahead and upgrade these M68 cannons to the CF447 Rhinos, as well as they have a better rate of fire, better range. They don't overheat nearly as much, and they do have more DPS. So that'll bring us up to 5,283 DPS with a fully crewed Carrack. Moving down to the components, again, all of the size of components are fixed. They are all size 3, so we're going to focus on upgrading for efficiency and best overall case use. So with this being said, we're going to upgrade one of our shields to the FR86, which has a really nice regen rate, and then the other will go with the parapet, which has a really decent shield pool. That'll give us a good combination of regen and shield pool, and of course you can also go with 2 parapets if you don't mind having a slower regen, but this is the recommendation that I would give for this particular ship, and just for my particular playstyle. Moving on for the power plant, there's really one option here. I would go with the JS500. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you know that I am a huge fan of the JS series. It is extremely reliable and it provides a lot of power. The draw request time on the components can vary, but it's usually really fast on delivering that power as well. So that's the one that I choose to go with, and overall that is the one that I go with on pretty much almost every other ship that I have, including the JS4 and the 300s for the size 2 and size 1s comparatively. For the coolers, we're going to be going to the military class Blizzards, as I find that they tend to work the best overall. Again, you might want to make different choices here based on your particular playstyle. I would recommend going through all the different modules on urkel.games, linked below, to make sure that you pick the choice that's right for you. But for me and my particular playstyle, I find the Blizzards are really great. They're reliable and they're pretty consistent, and they usually cool components and weapons quite quickly. So these are the ones that I'm going to stick with for now. The Agni is not a bad quantum drive, but I would definitely recommend changing it over. Now, because of the gigantic fuel tanks that you have in this ship, the TS2 is honestly a great option. It is lightning fast and also does a really good job at getting you there without using too much fuel. It will probably consume more fuel than some of the other drives that you might be thinking of, but given the fact that the Carrack has one of the largest fuel tanks in the game, it's not really something that I personally am too concerned about. So I usually go with the TS2 because I do travel longer distances in the Carrack, and I do like the fact that this, over longer distances, does provide a better, higher, and more consistent speed and gets me there relatively quickly. Again, unfortunately, we can't alter any of these other systems on the ship, with the exception of the paint, which I'm going to go ahead and choose my 2950 IAE exclusive limited edition paint, since I owned the Carrack for quite some time, including during the last IAE event, when it won one of the Best in Show awards at that time. So that's going to be my build for the ship. If you have any questions or comments, or you want to share your own links, please make sure to do that in the comment section below. That being said, thank you so very much for watching. I hope the video was helpful to you, and if it was, please make sure to let me know by leaving a like, making sure to subscribe if you're new, and making sure to ring the bell so you never miss a video in the future. Also, make sure to join us live on stream Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 PM Eastern on Twitch, and join our amazing and wonderful Discord family with the links provided in the description below. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye for now.